Hi everyone. If you're listening to this, you've probably already read Naval's tweet storm about how to get rich. And one of the things he talks about is setting a high aspirational hourly rate. Now, recently I was listening to My First Million, and I was listening to one of their first interviews with Dharmesh Shah. I believe it was their first ever interview. And surprise, surprise, he follows a very similar concept. So here's Dharmesh talking about setting a high hourly rate.
But just kind of taking it back to the early days, one kind of lesson I learned early on, and this is useful, beginning part of my career, is the kind of the relationship between time and money. And one thing is that we spend the better part of kind of the first half of our lives converting time into money, right? And you're looking for the hours. You're looking for, you want to get that rate up as you can. And then the latter half of you're desperately trying to buy time back with the money however best you can, right? So that's and it varies a little bit as to kind of when that kind of turn happens. But the thing that I kind of learned, I thought about it probably a few years after that. So I was making $3.65 in my first job when I came over as an immigrant, and I worked all the way through school. It took me 7 years to get my 4-year degree. I was working full time the whole way through, and that wasn't a lot of money. And as it turns out, I had to do pretty much everything. Nothing was delegatable. But then once I got to the point where I was making $10, $20, $50 an hour, it's like, okay, well now, and like all of my time, I can make as much billable as I want to, as much as I'm humanly possible, willing to work. There was someone willing to pay me for that time. I was an engineer. That's how things worked back then. It was, and the pivotal point for me is I got this. It was in my early 20s. I got this bump to like $125 an hour. I was working as an engineer, and that was an ungodly amount of money. I was in Birmingham, Alabama. This is the 90s. That was like real money, right? And I was working a lot, so I was making a fair amount. So then I made the decision that if there's anything I'm doing with my time that could be done by spending less than $125 an hour, I'm being an idiot by actually doing it, right? If I enjoy it, that's a different story. But if I'm not, it's just stupid. And so I've carried that kind of idea. It's like, okay, so what value would I place on my time?
Right.
What is occupying my time that I can kind of delegate, or even if I'm paying a premium, it's like, okay, I could pay $75 an hour for someone to pay, to mow my lawn. I hate it, but it's still profitable, right? Like,
Right.
like, why would you do that? It's like I would do that every day of the week. So the one thing that's changed for me, so now, like, I went back and did the math because I knew I was going to be on this podcast, and you folks like numbers. So let's say I worked on average 60 hours a week, and I've done that for about 30 years, give or take. It's my kind of professional career. My average hourly rate across the 30 years would be like $10,000 an hour, right? And now it's backloaded, but
Right.
that's effectively my hourly rate. And so now it's like, okay, well, if there's anything, and I would actually pay a premium right now, right, above that, right? Like, so I would not spend my time, even an hour, on anything that wasn't worth at least that. It's like, okay, well, like the future me would buy it for $50,000, $100,000 if there's some option value on that time. Anyway, the short message is most people don't value their time enough and don't think about it objectively
Right.
enough. And it, like anything else, is a resource, but it's finite. But put a number on it, and then ask yourself, like, what are the things I'm doing with my time that are not worth that?